This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Infirmary expansion. Nova Scotia unveils plans for a new $4.5 billion tower for the Halifax Hospital. Intimate partner violence. The family of a 22-year-old Annapolis Valley woman killed last month is calling for change. And sound off. Our political reporters dive into the Houston government's sweeping legislative changes.
Quiet conditions continue for Thursday, but a system approaching Thursday night into Friday will bring some flurries and light snow. Your full forecast is coming up.
The provincial government has finalized the contract for the first phase of the Halifax Infirmary redevelopment. When the project is complete, it will include more beds, operating rooms, and a new ICU and emergency department. Michael Gorman reports.
The government has signed a contract with Plenary PCL Health to construct the new acute care tower and maintain it for 30 years after it opens. It's a historic project with a historic price, $7.4 billion. The health minister acknowledges it's a big number, but says the project is vital.
We are building world-class facilities, and the care that is going to happen here, the technology and how it advances, our ability not only for employees to work in a state-of-the-art facility, but also for patients to receive care in a state-of-the-art facility, it's not going to get any cheaper than it is today.
When it opens in the fall of 2031, the tower will have 216 new patient beds and 16 new operating rooms. There will be a 48-bed ICU and a new emergency department double the size of the existing one. Most importantly, it will move some services out of the aging and failing Victoria General Hospital.
So it's a building that has done us well for many, many years, but its time is coming to an end. Our priority right now, our number one priority, is getting inpatient services and surgical services out of the VG. And that is exactly what the new acute care tower will provide.
Construction officials say about 70% of the workforce will be local, with workers brought in from other provinces to supplement skill needs. At its peak, up to 900 people will be working at the site, and there will be opportunities for apprenticeships. Officials say work continues to prepare for subsequent phases of the redevelopment, which will include a new cancer care centre and ambulatory care space. Michael Gorman, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia's Auditor General, Kim Adair, tells CBC News she cannot see how she can continue to do her job if the governing PCs give themselves the ability to fire her for any reason. On Tuesday, the Houston government introduced a bill to be able to dismiss the AG with a 2/3 vote in the House. The PCs have the numbers to do just that. Adair says she's trying to find out why the government wants that extraordinary power.
It is the foundation and the cornerstone for over a century as to how the Auditor General functions, that we are independent, objective, and not subject to bias, just like every other Auditor General across the country. So that's my concern. We are having discussions with government so I can understand better and the rationale why.
Premier Tim Houston says his government's decision to give itself the power to fire the AG is an attempt to bring this province in line with laws in other provinces. That is law in 2 other provinces, Manitoba and Alberta. The family of a young woman who was murdered in the Annapolis Valley last month say they want her to be remembered as more than a victim of domestic violence. Her family says they want to push for change to prevent intimate partner violence in Nova Scotia. The CBC's Nicholas Sagan has that story.
Inside this community centre, Peyton Pick is remembered, not for the tragic way she died, but for who she was.
I want her to be remembered as the carefree, kind, loving young lady she was. She brought joy to everybody's life.
Last month, Peyton was murdered. Her body found in this home in Centerville that had been set on fire. Her boyfriend, Justin Benjamin, charged in her death.
This is something I will never get over. I'm so sorry.
Peyton's death is the latest in a spike in intimate partner violence that has left 6 women dead since October. But her family doesn't want her memory to fade away as a statistic. They want her death to lead to change.
There needs to be something more, because it's It's sad that it's taken these 6 lives to come out, and like it really hurts knowing that like it was my niece.
Peyton's aunt says she wants to see more education in schools on recognizing and preventing domestic violence, as well as increased mental health care in rural areas. She says Peyton was isolated and controlled. She cried for help by trying to take her own life, but wasn't connected to any supports. This advocate says societal change and government action is needed.
We need to change as a culture and really stop accepting this and also feeling that it's other people's responsibility to do it.
So there's certainly more to do, but it is concerning, right, to see these events.
Comer says a new mental health care program will make support more accessible in rural areas. The Justice Minister says all departments are working on solutions.
We need to be ensuring that all students have education on how to build healthy relationships, how to reach out for help, how to identify challenging circumstances when they need help.
While it's too late to stop Peyton's tragedy, her family has a message.
We just want people to open their eyes and pay attention and watch out for our loved ones.
Nicholas Sagan, CBC News, Wolfville.
Peyton Pick was on the minds of a crowd of people in downtown Halifax today. They gathered to draw more attention to the issue of intimate partner violence and to call for action from all levels of government. A crowd of about 50 people started at police headquarters to distribute placards and practice slogans. They then marched through to the courthouse on Spring Garden Road to City Hall, gathering on the Grand Parade before heading to Province House. Organizers said they invited Premier Tim Houston, but he says he never heard about the invitation, but he stressed that he supports the cause.
I believe that it's important for men to understand and step up and speak out and acknowledge when they see something and take action. So I'm certainly concerned about the level of gender-based violence in our community. I think we've shown that from some of the government actions we've taken, and I'm happy to meet with people.
While he didn't meet with the marchers, Houston's government did announce today that it is extending paid leave for people experiencing domestic violence. The leave currently covers 3 days of paid leave. Starting April 1st, that paid leave will be extended to 5 days. A Pictou County man has pleaded guilty to sexually abusing his 3 children in a case that dates back decades. Douglas Guthrow Sr. admitted to crimes in Nova Scotia Supreme Court. The Crown describes the case as among the most disturbing he's ever been involved with. The 86-year-old's son and 2 daughters recalled being about 6 years old when the abuse began, which continued for years. Guthrow Sr. will be sentenced in April. All right, not beach weather, but the sun sure was nice.
So nice and welcome. And yes, we will be holding on to the sunshine again for Thursday, although fading away into the afternoon as we will see the clouds building in and across Nova Scotia as our next storm system approaches the region. You can see temperatures back near the freezing mark for your Thursday, as chilly as -2 to -3 and through the west. But most of us, will be pretty close to the freezing mark. And the winds will become lighter as we look forward to Thursday as well, so that'll be nice. The winds from the west overnight into early Thursday morning. Still a bit of a breeze as we start the day, but those winds will become lighter into the afternoon. Now, watching the timeline, Thursday afternoon, the clouds really building in, as we said, and looking at that next system starting to approach with some snow for Thursday night and continuing into Friday. Now, it looks like areas along the Atlantic coastline are going to be our best shot of seeing some accumulating snow, maybe as much as 2 to 5 centimeters. Just a coating towards the north, but enough to certainly add a little bit of snow and slickness to the roads for your Friday morning commute, especially, Amy. More on this in your 7-day coming up.
All right, keep an eye on that. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
The Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board has given Nova Scotia Power the go-ahead to raise power rates. The rate increase varies depending on the type of customer. For the average residential customer, the increase is 2.4%. Some of the money collected through higher rates will cover the first installment of paying down a $500 million federal bailout. A report from Nova Scotia's Information and Privacy Commissioner says the provincial government should have done more before, during, and after the Move It file transfer system privacy breach. The breach affected more than 100,000 people a year and a half ago. The breach was part of a global cyber attack. The information stolen was payroll data transferred between departments, including banking details, home addresses, and social insurance numbers. It cost the government here almost $4 million. The report says the harm from the breach was significant and was foreseeable. The Houston government wants to give the province's 14 community college campuses the ability to issue university degrees and not just certificates and diplomas. Advanced Education Minister Brenda McGuire introduced a bill that includes a provision that gives the province the power to create degree-granting courses at NSCCs.
You know, we have NSCCs right across the province. It allows our children, our youth to stay in those communities, and we know that if they're being educated in those communities, they're more likely to stay there. So it's really about when we need, if we need the flexibility, we can use it.
McGuire says the province will work with community college administrators to see what programs might be best suited to granting degrees. It's been a couple of busy days at Province House, the budget, then a series of big government announcements. It quickly became clear that Tim Houston's government is flexing its supermajority by giving itself the legislative muscle to make sweeping changes that impact how your government is held accountable. Michael Gorman and Jean Laroche explain why.
Tim Houston, since becoming Premier in 2021, has been fond of repeating the phrase, with great power comes great responsibility. And really, in the last week or two, we have seen how the Premier intends to use his great power in this second mandate.
Especially in this chamber, where yesterday his government House Leader, Brendan McGuire, made a number of changes, or proposed a number of changes to the way this House will run, which will limit the ability of the 12 members who sit in opposition to be able to gum up the works, slow down the passage of bills, and properly debate what's on the floor of this House.
And that's not the only place they've done that. The government has used its majority on several legislative committees to limit the amount of time opposition members have to ask questions. They've reduced it for the Liberals. They've increased it to their benefit. And for people who watch committees, why that's significant is because when government witnesses appear, usually the most pointed, constructive questions come from opposition members.
Tougher questions.
More questions from the government generally is going to mean fewer difficult questions for government witnesses.
And speaking of questions, one of the things that this government has decided it will not be doing is answering questions from reporters within the confines of Province House during this sitting and perhaps further sittings, something I have never seen in the 30 years that I've been here. Instead of taking reporters' questions on the fly just outside the chamber, we're being invited to go to one government to where there is a controlled environment, and they'll take our questions there. Why should you care? Well, because when we're over there, we're not here. And as we saw yesterday with a fire hose of announcements, all of them unanticipated, or most of them unanticipated, we can't be in two places at once.
And perhaps one of the most notable changes that the government announced yesterday is its plan to pass legislation to give itself the power to fire the Auditor General without cause. The legislation before the House says that with a 2/3 majority, which by the way the PCs have by a country mile, they can fire the Auditor General whenever they want, for whatever reason or no reason. They're also giving themselves the power to make Auditor General reports confidential and hidden from the public, either in their entirety or partly. And all of this, regardless of the reasons that the government presents for each of these changes, adds up to create the appearance of a government that is looking to reduce the amount of scrutiny it faces, to reduce the amount of accountability it's subject to, and to find ways to silence or reduce its critics.
At a time when we've had the greatest number of government members in this House ever.
There's a lovely mural in downtown Halifax. We've got Ryan up next with his full weather forecast. We'll see you in a few. All right, kind of enjoying the quiet for now. But
For now.
yeah, it's always this time of year, right?
Yeah, and listen, that Friday storm is going to be so close. We could have been, and I mean, it's not a slam dunk, though it's looking almost the closest thing to a slam dunk. We could have been really digging out.
Yeah.
And of course, with all the ice underfoot.
That'd be a huge mess.
A huge mess. And even a little bit of snow on top of that ice won't be great, and we'll have to watch for our footing for sure. But it is looking like Friday. We can handle it. Have a look at our current temperatures, and you can see we're back down below the freezing mark everywhere. We did get to +2 at Sheet Harbor at the Ballet Falls Station today. Got to 0 in Halifax. 3 on the plus side at Ingonish Beach. That was our hotspot today with those downsloping winds off the Cape Breton Highlands. Now, looking at those winds sustained in the 13 kilometer per hour range for Halifax, 22 to 26, Lunenburg to Yarmouth, and looking at some gusts upwards of 40 kilometers per hour still coming in along the coast there in the southwest at the Yarmouth station. Now, as we look at the satellite radar picture, boy, what a day today. That sunshine was just so nice, and we'll hang on to the sun at least to start the day on Thursday. Those clouds are going to build in throughout the day. Expect that, but we'll stay dry. And I think the biggest takeaway for Thursday is, for the first time in days and days, the winds are going to be really calm, like no breeze into the afternoon, which will be nice. Very, very welcomed indeed. There's the storm from the weekend still swirling around in the North Atlantic, and again, wrapping in that milder marine air, which has helped to bump our temperatures up just a wee bit. And so we've enjoyed that. There's the storm that is going to be working its way up the coastline, passing to our south on Friday. So keeping an eye on that, high pressure to follow it up, and that will set us up to look at a pretty good weekend overall, especially Saturday. Okay, so temperatures tonight will range from about -5 to -10. Best chance of -10 into minus double digits will be up towards Amherst and Oxford. As we look at the westerly winds, sustain near 15 to 20 overnight, and we will continue to see those gusts in the 30 to as much as 40 kilometer per hour range, most notably along the coast. Now, note the clouds, a little bit stubborn even from the get-go. As we look at the timeline for Thursday, from start to finish, I think those clouds pretty thick in through the south and west. A solid mix of sun and cloud to even mostly sunny to start Thursday morning elsewhere. And then that cloud, especially after lunch, will start to really thicken up, and that's when we'll become mostly cloudy to even just straight up cloudy by the end of the afternoon. Temperatures, though, not too bad for this time of year. Right around the seasonal mark, will range from around the freezing mark, as chilly as -2 for Thursday. For Cape Breton, eastern parts of the mainland, squeaking up to the plus side. Places like Antigonish and Sherbrooke will be near the freezing mark, 0 to -2 for central areas on Thursday, and back towards the west, we're going to be ranging from -1 to -3, with those westerly winds becoming light. Now, looking at Friday's forecast, and temperatures are going to be -2 to -4. The winds first from the northeast on Friday, early Friday, then becoming northerly, then northwesterly into the afternoon. As you'll see this, that's the snapshot in time you're seeing here. So there's the system Thursday night into overnight and Friday. So there's the northeast wind early on in the day, becoming northerly pretty quickly. So it's along that Atlantic coastline. We were looking at the best chances for some accumulation with this. Into the afternoon, it will start to pull away. So I think if there's one of the commutes that we're keeping a closer eye on, it's going to be Friday morning to be a bit on the snowy side. Saturday, the sunshine moves back in, so some good news there. Looking at our snowfall outlook map, and again, this very close to being a significant system, but for us right here now, we're looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters along that Atlantic coastline, including Halifax. Maybe a couple of pockets that do get up into those higher ranges for Guysborough. Better chance of cracking into the 5 to 10 range. Most of us a coating for northern areas, but enough to certainly dust things up and make things a little bit slick for Friday, especially in the morning, as we said. Saturday looks great. Sunday, increasing clouds, a few flurries, and a modest warm-up looking set for Tuesday into Wednesday of next week, Amy.
We take what we can get.
We certainly do.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, how the Halifax Bridge Commission is preparing for tolls to come off in less than 2 months. The Houston government is removing tolls from the Halifax harbor bridges on April 1st, following up on an election promise to scrap the toll revenue on both spans. Steve Proctor is spokesperson for Halifax Harbor Bridges. So come the 1st of April, what will traveling on the McKay and McDonald bridges look like?
Well, it'll definitely be different than it looks today. It'll be toll-free, and either the toll arms will be up, or if all things fall into place, and one or either the bridges, the toll plazas may be down. We're working on those things, and that is the goal, to get the toll plazas down as quickly as we possibly can. But if we're not quite there, then you'll be coming through the tolls with the bars up.
Any idea how much it will cost to remove them eventually?
Oh, we're not at that point yet. I don't know.
Well, how much planning will have to happen to make sure the flow of traffic is orderly without, people stopping at the tolls?
Well, that is the whole consideration. Certainly on the McDonald Bridge, it's less of a consideration because the constraint is right there at the lights. Certainly, we will be revamping the driving patterns, taking the lanes so you're not changing lanes, because that's where always the accident points were, and so we'll eliminate that. But my messaging is that everybody's going to have to be really safe and cautious as they drive it for the very first times, because it's going to be different. And so please be cautious and kind as you're approaching them in April 1st. And I can't tell you exactly what they're going to look like right now, but that's what we're working on, and our focus is on safety.
Now, CBC has heard from one expert who thinks removing the tolls will make traffic heavier. How will the bridges deal with that possibility?
Well, we'll have enforcement. Absolutely, we'll have enhanced enforcement at both toll plazas, or both areas where the toll plazas were, and we'll just have enhanced enforcement there. We'll be warning, certainly in the run-up to the removal of the tolls. There's going to be all kinds of messaging like this, and through PSAs and on radio, just to remind people that take a minute, because it's going to look different than it did before.
Now, eliminating the tolls will result in millions in lost revenue. Where do you expect that money will come from to maintain the bridges?
Well, the government in this current fiscal budget has set aside $83 million for projects for the next year, for the coming year, and like other government agencies, commissions, and will have to present budgets, and they'll have to be approved.
Now, does anything change for the upcoming revitalization of the McKay?
Well, not at this point. The tolling and the revitalization of the McKay are two separate issues, and one at this point does not affect the other.
Well, what will happen to the folks working at those toll booths? Do they lose their jobs?
Well, those are contract individuals. So it's Garda, and they by contract we give them notice, and they can be reassigned within the Garda. Garda's got a number of contracts all around the city, and so they can simply be reassigned to another place.
All right. Well, thank you so much for walking us through it. We appreciate it, Steve.
No problem, Amy.
Coming up, investigators are combing through the wreckage after that harrowing plane crash at Toronto's Pearson Airport Monday. And U.S. President Donald Trump takes aim at Volodymyr Zelensky, calling the Ukrainian president a dictator. Welcome back. As investigators look into what caused Monday's fiery crash of Delta passenger jet in Toronto, the process of removing the overturned plane from the tarmac has begun. 2 of the runways at Pearson International Airport remain closed. Lisa Shing has the latest.
Piece by piece, crews are starting to move the Delta Airlines plane off the tarmac after 2 days of investigations. Inside the terminals, things are getting back to normal. Most travelers also on the move, though some delays and cancellations continue.
Very stressful, but we're heading out 11 today. Fingers crossed, and get a 5-day vacation rather than 7.
Hopefully everyone's okay. And I mean, there are such things we can't control, so.
On Monday afternoon, Delta Flight 4819, arriving from Minneapolis, crashed on landing and flipped upside down. Passengers scrambling to get out as firefighters doused the flames. Come on! As of this morning, the airline says 21 of the nearly 80 people on board were sent to hospital. 20 of them have now been released.
One of them has returned because of significant head pain and likely has suffered a concussion because of the seatbelt releasing and her falling and striking her head in the plane.
One couple on that flight has retained this lawyer to make sure
that their damages are going to be compensated for as a result of this event that could have been much more tragic.
In a statement, Delta Airlines said it's providing crash survivors with hotels, meals, and transportation, and will soon get customers their baggage. Securing, identifying, sorting, and cleaning all belongings left on board could take a matter of weeks, it said. Now that it appears investigators are finishing their work on the runway, they'll now try to figure out what forces were at play when the plane descended.
You have a point where you arrest the descent, in other words, and pull back a little bit on the elevators to make sure you have a smooth descent. So you have a rate of descent which you arrest, it's called a round out or flare, and that I don't see that.
Investigators with the Transportation Safety Board of Canada say they have the plane's black box and it's in for analysis. Now, trying to find the cause of the crash will take weeks, possibly months. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
There is deep concern in Europe after some shocking new remarks made by Donald Trump. The U.S. president has unleashed a scathing rebuke of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump even claimed he started the war 3 years ago, not Russia's Vladimir Putin, who ordered the invasion. Then suggesting the delay of elections in Ukraine, necessary because of the fighting, makes Zelensky a dictator. Anna Cunningham reports.
President Donald Trump has labelled Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. Writing on his platform Truth Social, the US president said Zelensky was a dictator without elections and that he better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Now, President Trump also takes swipe in this post at Europe, saying it failed to bring peace. I think there's little doubt that this will not go down well in Paris, where EU and Western leaders, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, are joining in a meeting. He's joining that meeting remotely, and they're discussing Ukraine's future and security in Europe. This morning, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Donald Trump was living in a disinformation bubble after comments the US president made last night suggesting it was Ukraine who started the war, a line that has been used by the Kremlin. Take a listen.
Тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі.
President Putin has also been in front of the cameras in St. Petersburg today. He praised the outcome of Tuesday's Russia-US talks in Riyadh and said nobody is excluding Ukraine. This is what he said.
Да, мне доложили первое, второе, я оцениваю их высоко. Результат есть. На мой взгляд, сделали первый шаг для того, чтобы возобновить работу по самым разным направлениям, которые представляют взаимный интерес.
Many knew that under President Trump things would be different, but I think those countries, including Canada, will certainly be surprised at just how fast this relationship between the US and Ukraine has deteriorated in just a matter of days. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Health officials in Western India are struggling to contain an outbreak of a potentially deadly autoimmune disorder. It's happening in the city of Pune, a major IT and manufacturing hub. Authorities have intensified surveillance and testing, even launched an awareness campaign. But as the CBC's Salima Shivji reports, the number of cases is still rising.
An everyday task now much more difficult. Avanti Naik has to have her mother with her constantly, guiding her in the kitchen. She's still suffering from creeping paralysis. That's also hit more than 200 others in her neighborhood. She has Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS, a rare disorder where a body's immune system attacks its nerves.
There was a swelling here.
It started with seeing double and got much worse.
This jaw became heavy and I was not able to speak. So that time I was very much worried. And then we ran to the hospital.
She spent 2 weeks in intensive care, unable to speak or swallow. Avanti was one of the first patients in Pune in India's western Maharashtra state that's seen a worrying outbreak of GBS, which isn't contagious but has no cure. 9 people have died. Authorities quickly set up dedicated hospital beds, and with the patients all from a specific area of Pune, they started to trace the source, a pathogen known to cause GBS that officials believe came from contaminated water in a well that supplies tens of thousands of people.
The outbreak points to a larger problem, not just in Pune, one of the fastest growing cities in a rapidly developing India, when proper facilities like water purification plants aren't catching up to the pace of urbanization.
For this doctor who treated several of the patients, it's painful to think the outbreak could have been avoided.
This is a public health failure. We need to wake up.
He says while the mortality rate from GBS is quite low, treatment is very expensive, and the long-term effects are hard to predict.
But the morbidity, that means wheelchair-bound people, or people still having residual weakness, or still having symptoms like tingling numbness of both limbs, is still substantial. That is the real cost of this war which we have fought in the last 1 month.
A war that's not yet over. Confirmed cases are still rising, but more slowly than at the outbreak's peak. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Pune.
Back in Canada, the federal government has announced a plan to build a 1,000-kilometer high-speed rail network between Toronto and Quebec City.
Today, I'm announcing the launch of ALTO, the largest infrastructure project in Canadian history. A high-speed rail network between Quebec City and Toronto with stops in Trois-Rivières, Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, and Peterborough.
The design phase is billed at $3.9 billion. The all-electric trains will be expected to reach speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour, cutting travel times in half. The project is expected to take 6 years. The funds will only be allocated at the end of the design phase, which could take 4 to 5 years, so a future government could possibly modify or cancel the project. A key organizer of the so-called Freedom Convoy that paralyzed downtown Ottawa in 2022 has avoided more jail time.
It would have been wild out there. How do you feel, Jim?
Family, friends, and supporters greeted Pat King as he left an Ottawa courthouse earlier today. A judge handed King a 12-month sentence with 9 months credit for time already served in jail and under restrictive bail conditions. He'll serve the remaining 3 months under house arrest. That includes 100 hours of community service at a food bank or men's shelter. King was found guilty of 5 charges back in November for his role in the Convoy protest. With all the talk nationwide about patriotism, the threat of becoming the 51st American state, and tariffs, there's little doubt Canadian children have heard some of it. And they may be wondering what's going on. As the CBC's Deanna Sumanek-Johnson reports, experts say it's an opportunity to start a conversation about how real life connects with what they learn at school.
That looks like a butterfly.
It's not a question a parent typically expects to get from their 11-year-old.
When I heard tariffs, I had a feeling that it had to do something with Donald Trump. So I decided to ask Mom because I had a feeling she'd know. Do you work with my school?
She did know. It helps that Harper's mom is also a social studies teacher.
The idea that it is a way to encourage extra growth within one's own country, to encourage people to buy homemade or products that are from their own country.
Substantial tariffs will impose new tariffs.
It's one of the most beautiful words the world has taken.
Donald Trump's statements on Canada, heard on the news or through social media, may provoke questions or anxiety among Canadians of all ages. This professor of child psychology says if it worries you, broach it with your kids.
Asking themselves how much the tariffs are affecting them and their family personally, and also whether the parents have strong emotions about it themselves, because the more that that's true, then I would suggest talking about it even with the youngest children, even preschool age children.
With teens, she says parents should tread more carefully and not impose their own views.
I'd probably start by asking the teen what it is they've heard, and then I'd ask them what they think about it.
When it comes to classroom discussions, some teachers see this as a moment of opportunity.
I think it's helped students to see that what they're learning in social studies class is actually relevant to the real world. NAFTA, the WTO, the EU, they just see that as something they have to memorize for a test. And now we can relate it to current events.
So where has this happened before in our history? What has that led to? What has been the impact? And what can we learn from it?
Making sense of it together as kids and adults are now living through a tumultuous chapter in Canada's history. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
It's not uncommon to see coyotes in Canada's urban areas. A spike in the number of sightings and attacks in downtown Toronto has residents demanding action from the city. But as Inayat Singh reports, experts say the situation is more complicated than it seems.
He's trying to drag my dog with him, and I'm screaming and I'm kicking at the coyote to let go.
Residents in this downtown Toronto neighborhood have recorded over 50 coyote attacks. They poured out their frustration at the city at a recent virtual meeting.
We do feel like a lot of what you're saying to us is tone deaf and disconnected. We need a solution. The solutions you're giving us do not work.
But people who study urban coyotes say the role they play in a city's ecosystem is complex.
Ultimately, I think we want to coexist with coyotes. And even if we didn't want to, it would not be possible to get rid of coyotes in urban areas.
That's because they eat pests like mice and rats and protect native plants while staying mostly out of the way of humans. Part of the reason they might be extra aggressive now is because it's their mating season.
And so if they see dogs or that type of thing, they may see that as a threat to their territory and to their mating bond.
Garrett says knowing about mating season can help people be extra aware and take special precautions like dog walking in groups, but experts say a final option is culling because relocation doesn't work.
They come into conflict in their new location, or they try to come back to their original territory, reestablishing the conflict there.
If people encounter coyotes, the best advice is not to run away. Instead, make loud noises to scare them off and use simple ways to fight back.
And we gave these to our volunteers so that when they chased the coyote shouting at them, they could throw these tennis balls at the coyotes, intimidating them from a much greater distance.
A gentle way to deal with a sometimes dangerous but generally helpful neighbor. Inayat Singh, CBC News, Toronto.
Experts have given up hope of rescuing several dozen whales stranded on a remote beach in Australia. A warning, the video shows some animals in distress. More than 150 false killer whales were found beached on Tasmania's northwestern coast on Tuesday. Rescue crews attempted to refloat the marine mammals without success. Unfavorable ocean and weather conditions have made saving them almost impossible. Authorities say the 90 surviving whales may have to be euthanized. False killer whales are endangered and resemble orcas. An adult can grow to 6 meters long and weigh more than 1,200 kilograms. Well, having a donkey for a pet might not be for everyone, but for a family in Newfoundland, it is a perfect fit. They have big plans to spread the joy Seamus the donkey is bringing to their lives. The CBC's Troy Turner paid them a visit.
He's living life large. Although Seamus is only 5 months old, he gets this barn to himself, for now anyway. Seamus joined Dana Blackmore's little farm from New Brunswick last month after she saw him online.
I knew I wanted a donkey, but I had no idea how good he would be or how sweet he would be. And I honestly think if we trailered him up today and took him up to, one of our long-term care facilities, that it wouldn't be an issue.
And that's what Blackmore hopes to train Seamus for, working as a therapy animal to help people cope with whatever's going on in their lives, or just bring a little happiness to someone who needs it.
He's going to have a role to play in bringing some smiles to some faces. And I think at this time in our current lives and current affairs, it's really well needed.
First step in his training, getting used to life out and inside the home.
So that he sees doors open and close. He's very comfortable with people and children and other animals, and I tell you, he's amazing. He comes in, he's very comfortable, it was surprising. I mean, how calm he is, and so we take him in. He kind of has walked around the house. The routine that he's already established for himself is hilarious. Like, he'll go into the house. He knows he'll walk directly to the patio door. He'll come in, he'll do a little roll. He'll go to the fridge for a carrot, and then he comes back and makes himself comfortable on the rug.
And not just that, Seamus is also becoming an internet sensation, building up quite the following online through his owner's social media accounts. But Blackmore has some advice for anyone feeling inspired to have their own Seamus.
Since the social media, a lot of people have suggested that they might like to have a house donkey. When you look at it on the videos, that it's an easy thing to do, but it's a lot of work. It's a major commitment.
So what's next in store for Seamus? Well, he's going to meet his new herd, which includes 2 horses and a mule. And then after that, there will be a new barn, and with that will come a chance for people in the area to come meet him. Troy Turner, CBC News, Pound Cove.
Well, Canadian excitement is already ramping up for tomorrow's Canada-US final at the Four Nations Cup. And it's likely the same for fans on the American side. Now, Team USA's general manager is suggesting something that could really light some fireworks.
We would love it if President Trump was in attendance. We have a room full of proud American players and coaches and staff. And listen, we're just trying to represent our country the best way we can.
Guerin feels that extraordinary fight-filled start to the game was triggered by Canadian fans booing the national anthem. The stormy political climate, as well as the intense rivalry between Team Canada and Team USA. Tomorrow's game will be played on U.S. home ice in Boston. No word yet from the White House whether Trump will attend the game. Canada's main stock index ticked lower today, weighed down by losses in technology and base metals, while U.S. markets eked out a small gain. Here's a look at where things closed as we head to break. I know there are snow lovers out there, but it does sound like for a lot of us, it's dodging a bullet on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, we've got quite a bit of snow down now, right?
We're good, right?
I think we're good. I think we're good. We'll just ride this wave right through till April. Should I say April? Yeah. But yeah, we do have a lot of snow packed down, which is great. The ice is on the lakes, so we'll just keep riding the winter wave here. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day. Speaking of winter, and this is a beautiful one as we zoom in to Peggy's Cove. And of course, the lighthouse, probably the most photographed spot in the province. This might be right up there, though.
Yep, beautiful.
Beautiful shot. Thanks to Janice Young with some pancake ice there in the foreground. And yes, a beautiful shot indeed. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Keep them coming, especially when the sun is out. We're getting some nice ones. Have a look at the forecast for Thursday. Sunshine early, increasing clouds into the afternoon, becoming just cloudy by the end of the day. And we will see temperatures right around the freezing mark for tomorrow. Those winds notably becoming light. It has been a while since we had just a flat, calm day. That'll be the case for Thursday afternoon. Friday, we're looking at some clouds with some flurries and even some light snow bands looking set to get close enough as this storm does track just to the south. And again, those snow bands perhaps in and along the Atlantic coastline, the eastern shore, edging into Cape Breton. And then that system will kick out and will clear the skies for Saturday. In terms of snowfall totals, again, those big dark blue colors just offshore, those would be the heavier significant snows. But we could see upwards of 5 centimeters along the Atlantic coastline. The biggest, I think, takeaway would be that Friday morning's commute looks like it could be a little on the slick and snowy side, so a heads up on that. Nice Saturday, not bad Sunday, but a few flurries in the mix.
Okie doke. Wow, it has been 4 years since NASA's rover Perseverance landed on Mars. Percy, as some call it, is on the red planet collecting rock samples and searching for signs of ancient life. And its latest find has scientists sending the rover backtracking to collect more samples from an area it's already scoured.
The team's excitement over this rock texture that looks like cookies and cream. The pattern suggests possible evidence of water in the distant past, and they could be the oldest rocks ever found on Mars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it for us tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.